Welcome to The Amy Gregory Show, the show where real estate gets a reality check and success doesn't require burnout. I'm Amy, your straight shooting, pep talk in your pocket host who took the real estate world by storm with zero cold calls, no door knocking, and a firm no thanks to working 50-hour weeks. 8 years ago, I jumped into real estate with both feet, 3 kids, and a baby on the way. In my rookie year, I broke every rule in the book, earning 6 figures working just 10 hours a week. The industry was shocked. I wasn't. Now, I lead a powerhouse team of over 500 female solo agents nationwide, host retreats, create online courses, and sit proudly in the top 10 of my brokerage with over 85,000 agents. My mission? To help women like you scale your business, trust your intuition, and redefine what success looks like on your terms. So if you're ready to play big, ditch the hustle culture, and build a business that fits your life, not the other way around, you're in the right place. Let's get into it. We're going to jump in today. Today, we're going to be talking about the road to $1 million as a real estate agent. Primarily being a female solo real estate agent, this is a feat that most agents never hit in their business. And over the years, I've kind of learned I'm a little bit of an anomaly. And it's mostly because I've always been willing to not break the rules, but rewrite the rules. I think growing up, we go to school thinking, there's only one right answer and we always have to be right. Like we can't make any mistakes. On the test, we need to get 100%. And the truth of the matter is when you're building a business, you're 100% going to make mistakes. And there's more than one right answer. There's not just one way to build a business. So today, I'm going to talk to you a little bit about my road to $1 million and what it entailed, the highs, the lows, the good, the bad, the ugly. I'm pretty unedited, so let's jump into it. In 2017 is when I headed back to real estate. Mind you, I'd been licensed for a long time. I worked for a home builder in college, which was where I got my real estate license. But I kind of took 10 years off to have kids. And so in 2017, I just kept having this thought, like, go back to real estate, go back to real estate. And in all candor, I was terrified to go back to real estate. I thought, I literally have no idea what I'm doing. It felt totally foreign to me. So many people were like, oh, it's like riding a bike and you just get back on. And I'm like, I had never actually been on the bike though, because I was licensed because I worked for a home builder. And so in working for a home builder, you're like sitting a model home and you're not really filling out complex contracts or negotiating complex things. So brand new agent. And I just kind of jumped in with both feet, which is frankly, I would say it's like my best trait and my worst trait all at the same time. And so part of building a business is you have to grow this level of self-awareness that is uncomfortable, in the sense that you understand what your strengths are. And then you also understand that your strengths are also your greatest weaknesses. So my greatest weakness is I will jump headfirst into something without totally thinking through all of the consequences. But that's what's also built the business. So brand new agent, and I decided that I was going to use social media to build my business. And this idea didn't come overnight. It came after a lot of thought and a lot of, I was consulting for a home builder on their websites and their social media strategy. And in consulting with that home builder, I was like, wait a second. I'm like, we need to be marketing to moms. Like moms are primarily making this decision. That's just what my gut told me. I didn't know at the time that I think it's 91% of home purchases are influenced by women. I didn't know that at the time. I know that now, but at the time when I was consulting and structuring their social strategy, I thought, gosh, these images need to have kids in them. They need to have, like, we need to pay attention to the park across the street. What does this look like on Super Bowl Sunday and Thanksgiving Day? And how are you like living in the space? And right, wrong, or indifferent, women have always been the center of home. From a big picture societal standpoint, culturally, women have always been at the center of home. And so I thought, well, where am I going to find people to work with? And social media was the obvious choice for me because it was in my pocket. This was when Fixer Upper was a big deal. And everyone was like looking at these before and afters. And the show House Hunters was always on HGTV. And you start paying attention to some of these patterns. I just noticed these patterns of like, you turn on House Hunters, they weren't even showing like luxury real estate. They were very run-of-the-mill homes. And I thought, why do people want to watch this? It's not like, I would say like sexy real estate. It's just basic real estate. And so knowing that, I decided to do Home Tour Tuesdays, and I would take people through open houses and just like through my day of like what I was working on. At the time, I was pregnant with my fourth baby. And then my goal was to make $100,000 that year. And I kind of did the math of saying, okay, I need to sell 12 houses that hit between 400 and 500,000. And if I did that, then I would break $100,000, which at the time felt like an insane amount of money. To be making. But the math kind of checked out to me. So first year I'm doing this, I'm pacing to $100,000, and my husband worked in like the oil and gas industry at the time, and his company was acquired, and they wanted us to move to San Antonio. And I kind of looked at him like, okay, is this like your dream job? Because if so, I guess we can go, but you need to know that I won't be able to like do real estate at the pace I'm doing in San Antonio. I had no network. I knew moving my kids was going to like upset just the daily rhythm of life. I'd have to figure out friends and sports teams and schools and like understand like their social networks, which takes time. Whereas where I was at, I already had all of that done, and I knew where my kids were. I had family close by that could help me with my kids while I was working. And so we kind of had to have this like come to Jesus moment. And we turned down the offer in San Antonio, and we did not have a backup plan for him. And it was the first time in our marriage where we bet on my career over his career. And I think that was like a pivotal. I'm going to say it wrong now indefinitely. A pivotal switch inside my mentality. And there's these like pivotal moments where there's this mental shift that happens, and you're like, oh, okay. And it kind of, it jumps you to the next level. And that was the first one where I was like, oh, okay, we're going to prioritize my work over his work, which was a big deal. He ended up finding a job, but it was so close that the baby I was pregnant with was born on Cobra insurance. And it was kind of like, well, if something doesn't pan out for you, I'm going to have to work more hours. And he was going to have to handle the home front. So we do that. We stay here. And then I'm talking with my broker, and there were other agents that were wanting to learn how I was using social media. And I had agents on Instagram asking how to use social media. And I had seen other like entrepreneurs building online courses. And I thought, oh, well, maybe there's an opportunity to build an online course. And my broker had said like, hey, if you want to help build out the brokerage and recruit agents, we can cut you into their deals. And like you would say, agents are on an 80-20 split, and the brokerage would keep 10% and I would keep 10%. And so this idea of recruiting was kind of like planted in my brain. And I thought, oh, that's like an interesting way to like build. Like, how do you start scaling outside of transactions? And that was the first time I had the thought of like building outside of transactions. And it was an interesting, again, another shift in my brain. And so I started doing the math on that. And I thought, okay, if I want to make $100,000 bringing agents over to the brokerage, that means I'd have to bring in 10 agents that bring home $100,000, and I would get 10,000 of all of that, each one. And I thought, gosh, that seems like, in some ways it seems easy, and in other ways it felt difficult. And I thought, gosh, it just might be easier for me to go close more transactions. So there's all these like thought patterns and thought shifts going on in my head. And at that point, that's when I ran into EXP on Instagram. And I ran it. My sponsor is GoGo Bethke. And I remembered she had like announced that she was moving to Keller Williams. And then it seemed like 2 days later, she was moving her license to EXP. And it wasn't actually 2 days. It was like 9 months or something. But it felt like, oh, that's really fast. Like, why is she doing that? And she was one of the only other agents like using Instagram similarly to me at the time. And so I was kind of paying attention to what she was doing. And she moved her license really quick, and it sparked an interest in my brain of like, why is she doing that? And I have this rule in my business. It's called the rule of threes, where if I hear or see something 3 different times from 3 different like unconnected sources, it's like a sign to like, oh, look into that. That's a pattern. I'm seeing it multiple places. Something's going on there. And that's what happened with EXP. So GoGo had posted about it. I had a neighbor friend that's also an agent. He had said something to me about like, oh, hey, if you heard about this like EXP thing, what do you think? And I was like, I don't know anything about it. And then I heard it on a podcast. And on the podcast, they were kind of making fun of it. And then I saw GoGo move her license to EXP, and I had literally never talked to her in my entire life. But she seemed like the lowest risk person to ask, because I was like, I don't know, she's in Michigan, I'm in Arizona. Like, I'll ask her. I don't ever have to talk to her again if I don't want to do anything about it. And she sent me a video about EXP Explained, and all of a sudden, it was like a jigsaw puzzle where all the puzzle pieces just were like, and they all snapped into place, where I was like, oh, that plays nice with social media. So when I thought about staying at my local brokerage and bringing in more talent to that brokerage, I was confined to like a couple of zip codes, right? Like, you're just geographically confined to how many deals that broker can broker. And with EXP, there was no limit. So in my brain, I thought about it like, oh, this is like having like a brick and mortar storefront. So if I'm the Gap, that's a brick and mortar brokerage having one storefront, and it might be on the best corner in New York City, and you have one Gap store there, and you're able to like buy and sell all the jeans and t-shirts that you want, but just from that one location. Whereas EXP was like taking the Gap and putting it on the internet and being able to do business globally. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is the online storefront version for real estate brokerages. And so I watched that video, and then I literally watched it like probably 20 more times. And then I got out a piece of paper and pencil, and I literally did this while my kids were sitting there at my kitchen table doing homework. And I'm scribbling down numbers of like, okay, well, if I brought over this many agents, or if these agents were doing this, and if these agents brought over this many agents. And I kept my numbers really, really small, because you have to remember, I'm like this, like, I'm working part-time hours. Yes, I'm making $100,000, but my business was never going to be up on a real estate stage, right? It's not like I was like some mega team leader doing 300 million in production. That's just, it was not my business model. And so I kept my numbers really conservative, and I was like, wow, even at these conservative numbers, this makes all kinds of sense. And I think I can build it in 3 or 4 years. And so I told my husband, all right, I'm going to move my license to EXP. And he told me I was crazy. He was like, that's literally, I think, such a bad idea. And I said, I know, and it might be. And if it is, I will just move my license back to where it's at. I was good friends with the brokerage where I was at, and they were great about it. I talked to them about it, and they're like, yeah, if it doesn't work out, just come back and all's good. And I was like, okay, cool. So again, here goes Amy just jumping headfirst without totally thinking about all of the consequences. I just jumped headfirst into it, and I started like recruiting agents to EXP. And at first it was like really hard, and it felt very uncomfortable to me. And the greatest thing was that I just didn't know what I didn't know. And that served me really, really well, because there weren't really any rules, and everyone was just kind of making things up. One of the things I really struggled with though was figuring out like what kind of agent wants to work with me. Again, I'm not even closing 10 million in production. And all of a sudden I get into this EXP network, and I'm exposed to these team leaders that are doing 100, 200, 500 million in production, and they're recruiting agents as well. And I'm thinking, I have no shot. I feel like I am on the 7th grade basketball team and I am competing against Michael Jordan. And you're just like, okay, well, what are my options here? But I sat in those rooms and I tried to learn as much as I could. And I looked at building a big local team. They were going to mentor me doing that. And I just did not love that business model. It just felt like too much risk, too much liability, too much overhead. I just was like, I don't want to take that on. You have to remember, this is all during like 2020. I have a 3-year-old at this time. I'm homeschooling 3 kids. So that the thought of like building out a whole like local mega team model, I was just not interested. So I just ended up still recruiting agents. And one of the things I did do really well is I figured out like, and this is one of the things that this is a pattern. You'll see this thread throughout all of my business growth is I'm really good at finding the opportunity and finding like what I call the blue ocean opportunity. So there's like a red ocean and there's a blue ocean. And the red ocean is where like all the sharks are swimming and they are all feeding on fish and it's bloody. It is a bloodbath. They are competing for space. And that's what the big local team model looked like to me. I was like, oh gosh, that feels like I might die over there. And so I was able to find like the blue ocean. And one of the questions I asked myself was, I understood the local team model where it was, okay, they're going to go out, they're going to buy a bunch of online leads. Then they're going to hire an inside sales agent to call all of these leads, to book appointments for the agents. And then the agents are going to go fulfill the appointments. And so it's a very spreadsheet business. Like you buy X amount of leads, you make X amount of phone calls, you'll set X amount of appointments, you'll close X amount of deals. That business model works. It just wasn't enticing to me. So the question I started asking myself is like, well, who isn't on their database? Like who isn't inside those online leads, right? And I realized it's a person like me. Like I try really hard not to be on people's email lists. Like if I go to Bath and Body Works and they're like, oh, do you want to save 15% and give us your email address? I'm like, no, like absolutely not. I will literally pay double to not give you my email. I'm being silly, but I try really hard not to have my email address on things or my phone number on things. Like I don't want to be contacted. And that actually held true when I started looking at my transaction business. I was like, oh yeah, my clientele, they're the clientele that try hard not to be on email lists. And they had something in common. I call them kind of like the bougie bees. They are female. They're highly educated. They're typically stay-at-home moms. Some of them have careers, but they've typically put their spouses through medical school or law school or MBA, or they've done some like crazy thing like that. And they are the primary decision maker when it comes to like where the family lives. And so I noticed that thread and I was like, oh, and they likely are not on the mega team's email list. And so when it came time to recruit agents, I also was like, okay, I'm competing against these guys that are building the big, huge local team model. And I'm just this little like, quote unquote, stay-at-home mom with a fun side hustle. I mean, that's what it kind of was at the time. And what agents are going to want to work with me? And I thought to myself, I got on social media. Again, social media has always been the crux of my business. And I started talking to kind of like the female solo agent and asking like, are your brokers helping you? Or like, what are your brokers telling you to do? How are they telling you to build their business? And my DMs popped off. I heard stories of agents, like female agents, hiding pregnancies from their brokerage because they didn't want their brokers like putting them out to pasture, so to speak. Brokers telling women they needed to be at the office from 8 to 5 and they had to cold call and they had to door knock and they should put their 4 kids in a wagon and go door knock. And I thought, again, this goes back to like when we're in school, we're taught that like there's only one way, you can't make any mistakes. Like that's what we're taught in school. And so I think all of this was well-meaning, but there's more than one way to build a successful business. And as a female solo agent, I was like, well, or I could just go to the park with my kids and I could understand who was moving, who had the job transfer, whose kids were graduating from school and who was going to downsize, who was having a baby and would need to upsize. I could garner all of that sitting at the park with my kids because before social media existed, it was just your mom. Like literally your mom knew everything that was going on. And so while men tend to build like a spreadsheet business and it's a numbers business and they tend to compete, women tend to build a referral-based like collaborative business. And I call it like the sticky note business. It doesn't show up super well on a spreadsheet. It does show up well in your bank account though. This episode is sponsored by StanStore, the simplest way to turn your social media followers into clients. Want to build your database straight from Instagram without the tech headaches? I've got you. Click the link in the show notes to download my website template for realtors, designed to help you capture leads and grow your business with ease. Because your social media should be more than just likes. It should be your lead generating machine. So when it came to like bringing agents over to EXP, I started focusing on that female solo agent, and I took a year really to like understand what her pain points were, and then I just built a room that solved those pain points for her. And so the room we call ourselves, it's called Powerhouse. That's the name of my national organization with EXP, and we meet and train every single week, and it's kind of like being on a team without paying the splits of a team, and being very collaborative, which again is something we don't learn in school. Like in school, it's like, oh, no, like you have to know how to do everything yourself, and you can't have anyone help you on the test. And it's like, that's not actually real world though. And actually women are the best at collaborating, because when you are a mom and you're like having kids, there's nothing like those women that you have kids alongside, because no one understands like what's going on in your world quite like them. And there's like this sisterhood that comes. And the same is true inside of business. A lot of times women are building alongside their motherhood or alongside their lifestyle. And so we tend to build our businesses a little bit differently than our male counterparts. And again, it's not to say that one is better or worse than the other. They're just different. So I started recruiting agents. I became one of EXP's top recruiters. I recruited over 100 agents to my front line. And I think everyone was like, who the heck is this person and how is she doing this? And again, it was just looking for the problems and always seeking to solve problems, creating rooms that solve problems for that female solo agent. So I built this big room. It's called Powerhouse. I hold retreats to meet people. I hold group coaching to help these agents. And these all started to be like revenue streams inside my business. So not only like when we talk about the road to $1 million, you have to think beyond transactions. So the first thing you really have to do is you have to streamline your transactions. And you have to say like, okay, I need to increase my price point. I need to get listing heavy, and I need to decrease my commute, right? We want to increase your hourly rate. So many agents don't even know what their hourly rate is. And so they're spending their time doing things that's not worth their time. So you have to understand like, what are your money-making activities, and are you doing those every single day? So when it comes to transactions, it's being listing heavy, increasing your price point, and decreasing your commute. You can do this on social media by showing luxury homes. We use postcard strategies. We use open house strategies to really like take over a neighborhood and get really dialed in and connected into that neighborhood. Once you have transactions figured out, then you need to start building like auxiliary revenue streams outside of transactions. Transactions have a great paycheck, but you get fired every 30 days. And so I've always looked for like residual and like recurring revenue streams. And so you see this like with a subscription model or affiliates and things like that. And that's really what EXP is. It allows you to build this recurring revenue stream. That's the revenue stream that allowed me to retire my husband. But it takes some time to mature. So just like going and buying investment properties, the play on that is usually like that long-term equity gain. And agents need to start thinking about their business in more long-term, like residual recurring revenue. So it was transactions, and then it was EXP building out that rev share. And then the other thing that came alongside of like building out the rev share was online courses, digital products, and retreats. And these were all opportunities for me to meet more agents that were building the way that I was building. I'm still a $10 million producing agent, which is not like a sexy number, but it actually kind of is when you really do the math on it. If you go and look at like a big local team model and you go look at their P&L sheets, they run on like a 10 to 15% profit margin. That means as a $10 million producing agent, I'm really bringing home the same thing as a local team leader that's doing 100 million in production. I just don't have all the risk, liability, and overhead of that business model, right? And then when you think about doing it in part-time hours, like the hourly rate on that is phenomenal. So if you're looking to grow past transactions, you're looking to create residual revenue streams, you're going to be forced to look at the cloud-based brokerage model. And there's multiple models you can look at. The reason I still choose EXP, because I mean, agents, you can still move, right? But the reason I still keep choosing EXP is because it's founded by Glenn Sanford, and he is still at the helm of EXP, and he is the pioneer of the cloud-based brokerage model. And so for me, I always want to be like under the umbrella of the most visionary person I possibly can, right? Because I'm going to bet on him having the next best idea because he's already done it. So all of these things that are like copying the EXP model, they're just copying it, right? Are you adding to it? Are you the visionary at the helm of it, right? So you want to make sure you're sitting in rooms where big ideas are being talked about. And then you want to follow the feedback. So if you're posting on social media and people are constantly asking you like, oh, let's say you stage houses. Okay, great. Then you should have a digital product that helps other agents stage their houses easier and have that be selling on the sidelines of your business. Look for the residual revenue streams. And it's really this principle of building something once and collecting on it every single month. And that's really what the EXP model allows you to do. That's also what the digital product business allows you to do. It's automated, right? Whereas transactions are going to interrupt your vacations, and the mental load that comes with someone's multi-million-dollar transaction going on, it is a lot. And so we want to look for opportunities alongside transactions. You can build investment arms, all sorts of things. But the greatest thing I ever did was move my license to EXP and then build a room of like-minded agents, because now I don't need to know everything about everything. Instead, I have a room full of agents that are thinking outside the box, that are growing their businesses in like phenomenal ways. And I learn as much from them as they learn from me. It took me, let's see, it took me 6 years to get to $1 million, but it was so worth it. And now a lot of these revenue streams are residual. And so you have to hustle at the front end, but the goal is to not be hustling forever. Hopefully this gave you a lot to think on inside your business. If you are wanting to understand more about how Powerhouse works and if Powerhouse is a good fit for you, I will go ahead and put the link down in the show notes. Thanks so much for joining us. We'll see you next time. Thanks for tuning in to The Amy Gregory Show. If today's episode gave you that I needed this feeling, go ahead and hit subscribe so you never miss a pep talk when you need it most. And hey, if you're ready to scale your business without the burnout, I've got you. Head over to @AmyGregory on Instagram to connect, grab free resources, or join my community of Powerhouse women who are redefining real estate success. Until next time, trust your gut, take up space, and remember, you're just one bold move away from your next breakthrough.